and then like go through a laundry list of all of their other crimes, then we can make this not our problem.
So, Juliana, we're already getting into this a little bit, and hopefully we didn't answer your question, but as you've done this research and are really diving into this area, what are the similarities you see to the church today and the culture that we live in, and what you've discovered about all these stories of sexual violence in the Bible?
Yeah, I think we have really gotten into a lot of what the direction I was thinking about going here, but silence is the enemy of the church in this regard, and you see silence in the reception history, and then, like Bob was talking about, the monsterization of perpetrators, the othering. You see that there's this real reticence to take any type of responsibility for the perpetrators being within the bounds of community. If we can put them solidly outside, and then like go through a laundry list of all of their other crimes, then we can make this not our problem. And I fear that's what we often do within the church, that we're reticent to see abuse, and when it's finally exposed, often by the hands of a persistent media, then we like throw up our hands and say, well, this person's always been XYZ.
Yeah.
And that's really damaging. I imagine it's damaging for the victims to watch a community completely throw up their hands and say, not us. We didn't know.
Well, it seems like it's where these two things kind of work together, this idea that it's us versus them, either a sinner or a saint. You're either the David of the Holy Bible, or you're a sex addict pervert. You can't, it's either or.
Yeah.
And because of that, then we can't take responsibility or ownership if someone among us is discovered to be a perpetrator, because then it's like we're committing the crime with them.
Right.
Versus if we can allow that there's complexity in people, there's brokenness, and yet they are still a part of the community, that doesn't necessarily mean the whole community is nothing but, violent perpetrators of these things. So it's like somehow those two things really, they go together in a negative way, and it seems like for us to grow and change, they have to both shift together also.
Yeah, and your guys' own work, and I'm going to ask you a question now, I can turn the tables here. How does that come out in your own work, where you see very complex people where they're like leading? Does that come out often when you're working with people who?
Yeah, well, that's what I like about what we're saying, because even for those that end up like in counseling or in a group, I think initially there's this denial of, well, I'm not really an addict, or that happened once, but I'm not. And you can see or hear them even internally fighting with, well, that's not who I am. Because we've created these categories, and I did it in my own life. It's like, if I admit that I have an addiction to pornography, that means like I'm admitting I'm a monster, and I can't do that. And so through the counseling and the group I was in, to understand that didn't make me some monster. It helped me admit the pattern that I was stuck in and what it was going to take to change. And I think we just see that multiplied over and over with people, that because we have these categories, it's hard for people to allow themselves to get the healing and help they need, because first you have to admit you need the help.
Right.
So I think that's what we work with, is just trying to help people break through that denial and the rationalization and the minimization that we do, especially sexually, because of the personal nature, the private nature, the shame that can be associated with anything sexual, that all of that creates this hesitancy to admit that, that's me. Because then it's like I'm saying, well, I'm a monster. I don't belong in the church. I don't belong in community because I'm this other.
Right.
And so it's I think our mission to say, we want to help people see you can love God and be in a church and be addicted to sex. And the one doesn't violate or disqualify you from the other.
Yeah.
Like let's bring into balance that we want to help you find healing so that as you follow God and are a member of this church, you're getting healthier.
Right.
But you have to be willing to acknowledge that need first.
And you can be an abuser and still be a valued member of God's family. You can still be a redeemed saint. I think I just was thinking a lot about this as far as the culture in the church, why we do this. I think a lot of churches, and I'll just speak from my experience, churches I've been in tend to keep bigger things like this or other failings of leaders or people in the church quiet because, and this has been, again, my experience, that we're basically trying to protect the ministry of the church, quote unquote, that the church can't minister to people if they see how broken and messy we are.
It's not on their Instagram account.
Right. No, for sure. It's like, it's just your most glowing moments, right? That's what we do. And I think that something you were saying earlier, Bob, I think that we avoid messy because clean we think looks better and is more inviting. But I'm going to be honest with you. If no one in the hospital is sick, that's the wrong hospital for me. Like if you're only admitting clean people, I'm not clean, like I can't come in. And so I think that it's this cultural thing that actually counteracts what the church can do. So in protecting our ministry, we act clean and those and us and them type of mentality. What's actually funny is that if we would open up the conversation and really show that the church is messy and has a lot of broken people, more people would actually be attracted to it and your ministry would actually grow. And I think that that's what our ministry really tries to do as well, is not only help people find freedom and sexual wholeness, but also understand that once we can talk about a topic, specifically sex, sexual brokenness, sexual integrity, all of that, then you'll find that more people will be coming to your church or having conversations with people at your church because it's not, as you were saying, a silent issue. Totally.